Welcome to the Determined People podcast. We are committed to spreading encouragement, strength, and hope to a world in desperate need of it. Everywhere you look in today's culture, you see stories of remarkable people experiencing remarkable success. Our show focuses on the backstories of everyday, relatable people who have achieved greatness in their lives. We focus on the story behind what we see in the world. Our hope is that you find yourself in these stories, that you say, if that person made it, so can I. And now, our host, John Harrell.
Hello, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here. I am committed to spreading encouragement, strength, and hope to a world that's in desperate need of those things. And I think you'll agree, we live in a divided world. Let's be bridge builders, not dividers, okay? I have a favor to ask of you before we get started. Would you hit that subscribe button? You'll get our interviews every couple of weeks, and I also have an audio podcast on anywhere you get audios that have a daily message, 30 to 40 seconds of encouragement, strength, and hope, delivered right to your inbox every day when you subscribe. Share it with your friends, your family, your work colleagues. Share it with people you don't even like. Torture them with it. But I'd appreciate if you would do that. So let's get into today's show. Again, thank you for being here. I do this for you. Our guest today is an entrepreneur. Jen Hardy is the founder of Jen Hardy Coaching and Training. She has so many credentials, I couldn't memorize all of them. So I'm going to read them to you. We're not going to talk about all of these today, otherwise we'd have a 24-hour podcast. But she is board certified in all of these areas. She's a master practitioner of neurolinguistic programming, trainer of neurolinguistic programming life coaching, that's a lot, I'm going to say NLP, master NLP life coach, trainer of quantum time transformation, master practitioner of quantum board certified trainer of NLP, time transformation, and finally, she's a hypnotist as well. If I fall asleep, she's working on me, okay? So let's get started. Jen, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I appreciate you coming on. So let's just get started. We're going to start off with just some basics. Tell us a little bit about your family life, growing up.
Growing up family life. Growing up family life was interesting. I remember up till probably about 5 years old feeling like family life was awesome. As much as I could remember. We lived on a open space kind of ranch in the Dripping Springs area, and it was just be outside and play all the time. I don't think I even wore clothes for the first 5 years of my life. Just out running around. But my dad was never really present, as he was someone who at the time would travel the country helping other gyms, World Gym, actually revamp their sales team or revamp the floors of different places. So he wasn't around as much. It was mostly me and mom. And then sister came along around 5 years old as well. And there was definitely struggle after that. I recently had actually some new insights into all of that and how I felt about having a sibling come in when things already kind of felt almost in this sense of unrest, and there being a lot of anger that I didn't even realize I had around having a sibling come in and what it was creating between my family and my parents, and witnessing that. It's a very new realization for me that I've been working through. And throughout time, just noticing how that snowballed into who I was for myself, who I was with my family, and who they thought I was. And just this constant sense of I don't belong, or not being loved, or just a sense of not being enough in some way.
That impacts what you're talking about, your identity, who you are as a person. Now, let me ask this gently. So were these actual things that you weren't shown love by your mom, or is this a story you told yourself inside of your head?
Yeah, I would definitely say this is the story we told ourselves for sure.
Okay. We all do it.
We all do it. And I actually, part of the reason that I love what I do and why I appreciate opportunities to be on podcasts or on stages is because I believe there's so many people out in the world that will downplay the stories they're telling themselves because I didn't have trauma, right? The way we define it. I didn't have sexual assault. I didn't have domestic violence. I didn't have the loss of a parent or whatever it might be. And when we don't have that, in my opinion, societally, then therefore it must not be that bad. I need to just let it go. That can't be the problem. But even through recently doing some reading with Brene Brown, like she talks about a researcher discussing that our brain likes to complete stories, right? Or patterns, we should say. But what are stories but patterns? And the brain will take whatever it needs to take to complete the story, even if the information it's using is just incomplete or flat out wrong, as long as it completes the story.
That's right. Because the brain doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality.
Correct.
But whatever you put in there as an idea becomes reality, manifests into the world. And we see it. We see a lot of unresolved trauma. We think of trauma as like blunt force or something. It's not that. It's these coping mechanisms that we have to get through difficult periods. Now, you did have a very life-altering moment when you were 5 years old. Your dad introduced you to your future stepmom. How did that add to what you were already feeling?
Yeah, that's actually a very, it's interesting how vivid of a memory it is for me that kept coming up. And to be fair, I had no idea she was going to be my stepmother. It was just a woman I was being introduced to at 5 years old. But the vivid memory I have is of my hand being let go of. Like I'm holding hands with my dad walking through the mall, and my hand being let go of. And I remember as a 40-something looking back at a 5-year-old thinking, I'm no longer enough. And it was that simple, right? It was someone letting go of your hand. He didn't hit me. There wasn't a problem like we think of. Like he let go of my hand with no malintent, nothing behind it, going to say hi to someone and bring them to say hello to me. And that was all it took in that moment, alongside of so many other things.
You started using something to withhold or to have power over your dad.
I did.
Describe that, if you would.
Yeah, it took me a long time to recognize, but I would definitely withhold love as my kryptonite. It was my way to pull the strings. It was my way to have power. And I'm learning it wasn't just my father. It was men in general. I did it with men for a very long time, over a very long period of time. But the first realization was with my father, and recognizing that that's how I could control the situation, because in my eyes, there was this powerful man who I couldn't possibly, figure out how to deal with. But if I withheld my love, because, he didn't give it, he didn't show it, why should I? But really, I was perpetuating my own problem. And realizing that at first was really like, right? It's like, oh, God, awesome. But then almost as instantaneously, it was like, that means I can do something about it. And I went and had the conversation. And I mean, many people might think like, oh my God, you did? Like you went and like talked about that? Like, yeah. I immediately called him and told him I need him to just like listen, because he's a fixer. So of course, when this conversation started, he probably would have wanted to fix it naturally. So I'm like, this is gonna be hard enough in the first place. So just let me say what I need to say. Let me get through it. And I'm bawling, and I'm sitting in the car in a garage parking lot, and it's like normal Texas summer, like just boiling. And I just start pouring out basically everything I just said, that like I'm realizing, I'm doing some self-work, digging into my own perceptions really, and realizing that I haven't been telling him I love him because it was my way to have power, and that it's the last thing I want to do is withhold my love. The only thing I want is to have a relationship with my father. But yet I'm very clear how I was creating my own problem. And, I finally get through it all, tell him he's my hero, he's my inspiration, I love him, I'm done with the way we've been doing things. He will hear I love you from me every time we talk. I will hug him whether he wants me to or not. And I'm like, okay, I'm done, I'm going to stop talking now. And thankfully, because not every conversation is going to go as well as we hope it's going to go, right? Thankfully for me, he thanked me. He said he was proud of me for doing the work. And then he gave me the dagger, which was, I'm so glad to know this, because I didn't even think you wanted to hear me say that anymore. And it was just like, whoa. Like really, really aware of creating my own reality. And it took time, of course, because I say we teach people how to treat us. And so I'd been doing that for so long, it took time, even though there was a huge shift in that moment. And in 5 minutes, that conversation took 5 minutes. Our life was never the same. And there was still, for lack of a better word, proving that I am who I say I am now as we move forward.
Sure. Sound like your dad took it well, but you were hurting, so you were trying to hurt him. And in the final analysis, you just hurt yourself.
Yep.
But now you worked through it. So, yeah, be proud of yourself for doing that. That's hard. Sometimes the most difficult conversations we have are with the people we love the most. Mm-hmm. I've never figured out why, but that is how it is. What about your relationship with your sister? How is that?
Now it's amazing.
You never tried to kill her or anything?
No, we've got some interesting stories, let me tell you. Mm-hmm. But it was hard growing up. I think I had a lot of blame. Like I said, I had a recent realization around a lot of unresolved anger with her coming into the picture. Mm-hmm. And there was just so much tension between the two of us for so long. And it was almost a projection of the same thing that was happening with my dad, but reverse. Whereas, she was just desperately like, love me, let me be a part of your life, let me be involved. I was her hero. Mm-hmm. I think I still am for her. And for me, it was just like, you're part of the problem. You were part of the reason he doesn't love me. They don't love me. You're part of the reason I don't belong. Mm-hmm. And yet she's the one person in the family who's been like, no, come, you belong. Please be here. Be engaged with us, And she and I have done a lot of work together. I mean, I've told you that Landmark was the first stepping stone I took to start breaking through all these old patterns and old perceptions. And I'll never forget, I went out to go dancing with a girlfriend 2 days after I finished my first round of Landmark, and I sent a picture to my sister. And she replied back and was like, is this you? And I was, well, yeah. And she's like, that doesn't even look like you. And I believe it's because I had so much trapped anger and hurt and so many things. Like, it literally adds youth. I mean, you just said it too. Like you feel like you age backwards when you let go of so much stuff. Yeah. And I've seen the picture myself, and I'm like, wow, yeah, that is from here to there. It's a totally different human. And I
do want to talk about Landmark and then how you moved into NLP.
Yeah.
But let's back up.
Yep.
What got you to finally go to Landmark and go to work on yourself? What was the catalyst?
A breakup.
Okay.
A breakup.
Breakups can be good also, as we know.
They can. I actually have a friend who has a whole program that's like from breakup to breakthrough. But what happened was it was like a rock bottom for me. It was a moment of just like, this is the same version or a different version of the same thing again. Mm-hmm. Why does this keep happening in love with men? And it's like, and I felt broken. I felt like it's got to be me. This can't keep happening over and over again, a different version of the same story if there's not something wrong with me. Mm-hmm. And another girlfriend of mine had just gone through Landmark, and timing-wise, she called me and she's sharing and she's telling me, and I was in a place of like, fix me, save me, basically, right? And here she is telling me about this whole program, and I'm like, yes, mm-hmm. Sure, whatever, give me something. And I think the biggest lesson that I've learned in all of this that I learned in Landmark was I'm not broken. There was nothing to fix. And like that aha in itself has catalyzed like this whole concept of being able to heal, but there's nothing to fix. Mm-hmm. And so that's what really kind of pushed me in there. And I will never forget going to a Landmark seminar and just every chance that they asked for like a volunteer or a share, like my hand was up. Like I knew I was going in, and I'm like, I don't care what it takes. Fix it.
So tell me what manifested from the Landmark.
What manifested from the Landmark only, just Landmark by itself, was I got my family back, which I didn't even know I wanted.
Expand on that.
My perception was I don't want to be a part of them. I'm not a part of them. My perception was maybe it'll be a way for me to let go of all of it. But underneath it all I wanted was my family. And I got back my dad. Mm-hmm. I got back my mother, because we also had a volatile relationship at that point in time. I got my sister in a way that I'd never gotten her before. Mm-hmm. I let go of some feelings I had around having a stepmother and how that relationship went, and got a new perception. And just, I got family, and I didn't even know I wanted my family. So I went in there thinking about love and relationships and men and self-love. And I walked out with a new appreciation and connection with my family and my friends.
Yeah. You made some phone calls to your friends.
I did.
What happened?
Yeah. I realized that I had been saying yes to a lot of things in my life. I'd been saying yes to being the director of this or the coordinator of that and volunteering with this and helping with that, but I never said yes to the people that I actually mattered to me, because I had all these stories around like people just get close to you, leave you, and hurt you. Mm-hmm. And so I would just constantly push them away. And I realized I was doing that with my closest friends. So I started picking up the phone and just basically saying, I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sorry I haven't been there. I'm sorry I haven't been around. You're my people. You're one of my people who I want in my life. And like, what do I need to do is there anything I can do to heal this? Can we move forward? Most of them, yes. And some of them, no. And that, again, it was still a gift to have the conversation, even if it didn't go back to being a friendship. Sure. There was just so much release in the conversation.
Cleared the shit out of the air that was there. And, that's good for you as well.
Yep.
It really is for you.
It was so healing.
Yeah, absolutely. So what took you into neurolinguistic programming? How did you discover that?
So it was kind of an accident, but like I don't believe in accidents, right? So
I like what Einstein said, coincidences are God's way of remaining anonymous.
Yes. Oh, I love that quote. Yes. I had left teaching and coaching. Mm-hmm. And
I want to add, you had a very successful career as a teacher. As I recall, you took the Vandergrift soccer team to state. Is that right?
I did. Yeah. We were the first Austin area soccer team to win a state title in UIL's 32 years of existence. Wow. In any classification, boys or girls. So it was a big deal.
So you walked away from that.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, pretty much everyone. I mean, we'd won state and we'd been back to state twice more. Mm-hmm. I was the athletic director on the girls' side, was helping with, I had a lot of titles, if you will. Mm-hmm. And people are like, I cannot believe you're leaving. Like, you're literally leaving in like what people would consider the height of your career. And it was just like, I fell into coaching and teaching at that point in my life. Like, I just started doing it. And I felt like I was doing what I wound up doing, and I was really good at what I wound up doing, but what else am I capable of doing? Mm-hmm. And so I decided to go find out. Yeah. And Landmark was part of the catalyst of that. Doing Landmark made me realize, like, oh, I'm doing this because it's what I wound up doing. What else could I possibly do?
Yeah. And people are saying, you're crazy to leave at the top of the game. They can't see the vision you see.
Yeah.
They cannot put themselves inside of your head and your heart and see what you see. So what was your impression of obviously you loved NLP.
Oh, yes.
I'm trying to say neurolinguistic programming.
I know, just say NLP. It's
Kid from Sherman, Texas, I can barely say a 3-syllable word.
I don't even like to say neurolinguistic programming.
So what was your impression? You really dug into NLP.
I did. To back up really fast, to say it quickly, how I got into it was, mm-hmm. I was a part of a mastermind with like 8 or 10 women here in Austin. Mm-hmm. I was part of the We Succeed group that was here a while back, and Deborah Yeager, who runs Yeager Training, was one of our co-leads for that mastermind. And not only did she do work with us that was based in quantum time and NLP, but she also gave us like a complimentary seat into one of her 3-day events. Mm-hmm. But the first thing that really got me was when she did work with me one-on-one. And I let go of literally decades of stuff that I didn't even know was there, kind of like the dad stuff, mm-hmm. in about 15 to 20 minutes.
That's remarkable.
And it was.
That is remarkable.
It was remarkable. And I'll never forget the experience, because it was so visceral, but also like, for lack of a better word, easy, but not, right? Like it was, or I should say it differently. It was simple, not easy.
Yeah.
And the shift within 48 hours, like I look back to now and I'm like, I started dressing differently. I saw myself differently, because the work we had done in that very moment, I used to, and I can still get it. When I don't say what I need to say, I'll get a lump in my throat, and my throat will let me know, like, you need to speak, mm-hmm. right? And then she's trying to support me to like get this learning I need to get. And the learning that needs to come out of my mouth is that I'm beautiful. Mm-hmm. It was like a literal battle between like head and heart, conscious, unconscious, however you want to say it, sure. to come out of my mouth. And I'm just like, shedding tears basically being like, it's okay to say it. No, it's not. It's okay to say it. No, it's not, right? And then finally just uttering, I'm beautiful. And from that moment, like literally dressing differently, standing differently, being, I remember being like received differently even. And it was fascinating. And so I went to the 3-day event, and that's when I got really clear that it was actually NLP and timeline therapy. And I'm like, I'm in. Like this was so fascinating. And I didn't do it to become what I am now. I did it because I wanted to know more for me. Like I've already done Landmark, and that was amazing. And I'm like, and this could do more?
Yeah.
I'm like, break me open. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
So,
I admire that, because self-work is the hardest work you'll ever do.
I know.
It is the hardest work you'll ever do, but also anything that you're going to attempt that's hard is going to be worthwhile.
Yep.
And it is so worthwhile. My psychotherapist said to me one time, and this is probably 3 or 4 years into psychotherapy, I thought about it, and I thought, okay, I believe you, because he's brilliant. But he said that the healthier that I get mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, the more healthy people I'll attract into my life.
Yep.
And it's true.
Yep.
And I think you would say the same thing.
Absolutely. I would.
Now, when you meet somebody new, do you start off with, "Hi, I'm Jen Hardy. I'm beautiful"?
No.
But you could say that. You could, because you can say it now.
Yeah, I can say it out loud. Yeah, even just saying it to you and sharing this story was like not a big deal. Whereas I know in the past it would have been like,
Well, yeah, they might laugh. They might go, "Well, she thinks a lot of herself."
exactly,
But,
right? Like,
yeah, probably not a good lead in. So how is NLP complementary to Landmark?
for me, I feel like it gave me the tools to support myself and other people moving forward. I got to learn how to support others. So Landmark started to like scratch the surface and started to like, shift stuff out and bring new perception and new awareness. And then NLP just expanded the tools. Okay. I feel like I have a massive tool belt to support staying balanced in so many different ways, mentally, emotionally, physically, and how you handle, goodness, right now, the chaos of the world, right? But also just we were talking about it earlier, how to just have more humanity, how to have more compassion and grace.
One thing, a way to kind of stay balanced, whatever that looks like to each person. I have never found that balance, but I am good at setting boundaries. And that's what you're talking about, putting a boundary up, not being the yes, Jen, yes, I'll do this, yes, I'll do that, yes, I'll do that, at the expense of relationships. Right. You learn to set boundaries, and I want to talk about that in a minute. First of all, I want to talk about, let's say, when you get a new client, what's it like to start working with you? Let's just say in the NLP space.
What's it like on their side of the the table? Well, it usually starts with we've got to challenge your model of the world a little bit. Okay. We've got to dive into what is your current model of the world? How do you see things? What is your perception? What color glasses are you wearing? And searching for those current limiting beliefs, or I call them BS belief systems.
BS is a good one, yeah. Good one.
And what emotion is constantly being acknowledged through those conversations? Because a lot of times I'll hear a lot is anger. There's so much anger, there's so much frustration, or there's so much rage or irritation and frustration, and making note of like, okay, this one's really strong. Like this is something that might be really stuck. But it does start with a conversation of where someone is currently at from their perspective. How are they seeing things? How are they hearing things? How are they feeling things? How are they experiencing life? What do you want instead? And that's really fun because you can see them be like, how am I even supposed to consider that? Because I've never had that. And I'm like, I know that's the fun part, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it actually was Einstein who said we spend our whole life our whole childhood trying to become an adult, and we spend our whole adulthood trying to get back to childhood. And I share that with my clients almost every time because I'm like, I need you to go back to your child mind. I need you to go back to imagining, to creating, because you're currently creating what you don't actually want. So what if you actually learned how to create what you do want? Mm-hmm. And they're like, so I can just like pretend? And I'm like, yeah, it's that simple sometimes. So getting them to start to consider what is actually possible so that I know what they want and what they want to create, so that when we can actually start to dive into the work, But it does start with some pre-frames. It does start with, looking at perception as projection, which I believe is part of what you just said with the 5 people you surround yourself with, right? They're going to be a direct reflection of you in some way. And if you realize you're not really enjoying the reflections, you've probably shifted. And it may be time to either help those people rise with you or let them go. And that's definitely an interesting part for people to chew on at first. Of like, I had a woman come through a program and she's like, I may need to let go of my boyfriend and all of my friends. I'm like, you might. She's like, I'm not ready to do that. I'm like, okay, that's okay. Yeah. You will when you're ready.
Yeah, just her recognizing that.
Huge.
Is a big step.
Huge.
Big step.
Yeah.
Because it's a shift of the mind, right?
Yep.
That's what you're looking for. And find out what really turns them on. And you can usually see it in their eyes. When you get to that point, it's when, okay, let's go.
Yep.
It's go time. Yeah. And you work with men and women.
I do.
What's the experience, compare and contrast working with men versus women?
Honestly, what I'm learning is a lot less than you might think.
So there's a lot of crossover then. A lot of complementary.
A lot of things I would have typically been out there saying, women deal with this, women deal with this, women deal with this. Now I'm going, no, we all deal with it. It may be a slight variation, may even use different language, but the experience, that worthiness, that desire to connect, to be loved, to love, like it's still all there. It's just we are out there portraying it in different ways. But it is, I used to think like men probably had more anger and women probably had more sadness. And it's like, nope, that's not true either. It's definitely a lot more parallel than people might imagine off the top of their head. And it's been fascinating to get to work with men since I do typically work with women. It's definitely deepened my understanding and appreciation for who men are attempting to be in this world and what perception women have of that. Yeah. And vice versa.
Sure. Now let's talk about boundaries.
Yeah.
How do you teach people to set boundaries if they've not been good at it? How do you teach them?
The first thing that I do to teach boundaries is you can't set a boundary if you don't know what you value to begin with. So the first thing we do is find out what your values are. So we actually do have like a literal exercise to elicit values, what actually matters to you, which a lot of people might think they know what it is. But we have processes to really dive into like the full spectrum of what we value. But then just as importantly, what does it mean when you say you value communication? What does that actually mean? Because we say it, but then we're not always sure we know what it means, because we may say it and then someone we're dating may say they value the same thing, but then we're butting heads. And it's like, but we value the same thing, so why are we butting heads? Well, when you dive into the definition, you realize you don't actually mean the same thing. Or vice versa, you find out you do. But then also why? Why do you value that? And sometimes that's where you can discover and uncover some of the BS and the trauma as to why you've chosen to believe it and why you've chosen that as something you value. A quick example, because we've talked about my family already, when I elicited my values around my own family, because it's useful to elicit values in every area of life, to know how to set boundaries in every area. We think of it as values of life, which is also true, but then niching down into each area of life. Well, when I did it for my family and I got into why is this important to me, because they might die, came up about 8 times.
Really?
And because there has been a lot of things. My poor sister has had a very traumatic history. Some things have happened with my father, some things have happened with my mother. And so it's not weird, it's not odd that came up, but it wasn't also present to me that part of the reason I valued so much and why I constantly felt like I had to be the one to fix everything, because they might die.
Well, they will die.
Exactly.
Yeah, they will.
But like the suddenness, right? The like, it could happen, and it can happen tomorrow. So it is the acceptance of, that could happen at any point in time. But there was so much fear around it that there was no grace and compassion within how my family decided to live their lives. It was like, gotta fix it, gotta do it right, gotta da 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 da, right? And it had me show up as basically the bitch of the family.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
And then getting angry when you don't fix things, right?
Yeah.
Getting frustrated. Frustrated probably.
Being the
better-
middleman.
better
I was the
word.
middleman so much, and I put myself there. And I'm finally not there. And I'm like, I don't want to be here. It puts me in a really weird position.
Start aging backwards now. You know?
Yes.
Yes. Aging
Yeah.
reverse.
So with boundaries, you got to know what you value to be able to set a boundary around it.
What's it like when you see a client who's not been good at setting boundaries, all of a sudden able to do it?
Oh, it's life-changing. It's life-changing. Immediately.
They could have done it all the time. They just now have the confidence to do it.
Well, and there's a pitfall there. Because not a lot. Sometimes they're like, this life could have been so much different so many years ago. And I've had to deal with all of this when it could have been like this. And it's like, right, and everything happened the way everything had to happen for you to get what you needed to get to be where you are right now to do what you're going to go do when you're going to go do it. So, you got to and be willing to accept that.
I have a saying, I actually said it yesterday to somebody. Every experience we had, the good and the bad, prepares us for something else. We just don't know what that is. And it may be years down the road, it may be tomorrow. But everything prepares us for something else. How do you work with people to get rid of the guilt of, I could have made this decision 20 years ago. I could have set the boundary 20 years ago and my life would have turned out differently. Because somebody can have guilt associated with that. How do you work with them on that?
Well, there's really a couple different ways. Because in quantum time, when we deal with past stuff, one of the things we deal with are anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, shame, and the origination of those emotions and the amount of a hold they can have on us so that they don't have to have that level of hold anymore. And by releasing even guilt in that way, there's a lot less of an experience. Now, I want to be really clear. Guilt needs to be experienced. Guilt is a human emotion that needs, all of those are things that need to be experienced, the wave ridden by, gone through, but you don't have to sit in them.
Yeah.
And I think that's an interesting societal badge that's been created of this suffering badge. And what's the real point there behind it? So for me and what I've been taught and what I've chosen to believe is grief and all these other emotions are normal and necessary. Suffering is a choice. And for what purpose are you choosing to suffer? So that is a conversation that I have with clients who maybe have already done the release of grief and now they're still feeling it over this. We have that conversation of well, you could choose. Please do grieve that part of life and then let it go and move on. And if you choose to suffer, for what purpose? What are you getting out of suffering?
You're shortening your life is what you're doing. You really are.
Yeah.
You really are. And you're also probably going to not be attracting the right people into your life at that point.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be around that person, right?
Yeah. Well, but some people really do believe they're getting a bigger payoff out of suffering.
I know. It's just so screwed up to me.
I know.
It really is. It's just so screwed up.
Yeah.
But anyway. So obviously what you're doing is working because I have if I took this from your website, which is www.thejenhardy.com. It's on the screen. I read and copied one of the testimonials. So, quote, working with Jen has been utterly life-changing. Jen has helped me break through the limitations I was putting on myself, judgments and perceptions that weren't based on anything except my internal issue, those stories inside your head. I now feel so free, empowered, ready to conquer anything thrown my way and walk through life living my truth and no one else's. How great is that? So this young woman, I didn't put her name on there, but she's had a complete life change. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I started working with that woman a little over a year ago. Actually, a little longer than that. Her other part of her journey was a little over a year ago. But yeah, we started with her as a private client and made some dramatic shifts very quickly. She was probably at that point in time my most transformative client, and I say it's because she came in like I went in when I first did it, and it was like, I am done. I'm so done with the way things are going. Let's go. So it didn't matter what I told her. Like if it didn't matter what I asked her to do, what I told her to do, she's like, okay. And she dove so head first. She leapt, and she had some massive results. And not only did she rediscover herself, love for herself, her voice, how to use it. She actually ended up climbing her corporate ladder even more quickly. She was already a VP of a global company, but she had climbed in a way that she had gained even more presence and just people wanting her to be involved in what was going on and how things were going. And through all of it, she enjoyed the process so much, she wanted to learn like I did. And so she came and got certified. She was actually one of the first people I certified in NLP as a practitioner and as a coach. And now almost, I'd say about a year and a half since we completed her private sessions. She got certified in September. She continued on, got master certified with Irina and I. And now she has officially left her corporate VP job. And she is now working as a life coach herself, but for CEOs and executives who are experiencing frustration and burnout.
Wow. She's more fulfilled now than ever, right?
Oh, yeah. Now she goes to trainings with me, alongside of me, and we get to share a whole different concept and experience of the whole process. So it's been amazing to watch.
You know, I think it was Mark Twain who said, 2 things are certain, death and taxes. Mark left one out, and that is struggle. Everybody struggles. Everybody has struggles. Yep. Doesn't matter how good they look on the outside, they are struggling with something. It could be something very small, or it could be something seemingly insurmountable, right? What you do is you help them face the struggles and help them work through them and see where maybe some of the struggles came from, the genesis of it, and then redirect their thinking, change the neural pathways up here so they have a different way of, the lens that they view the world through expands in a good way.
Yeah, I actually, Viktor Frankl and Stephen Covey's book, Between Stimulus and Response lies our power and freedom to choose. It's loosely quoted. And that quote defined what I started doing. Because I believe right now people feel like stimulus and response, where we're supposed to have space. I feel like most people feel like it's more like this. Right? It's stimulus and response. There's space here, right? And I feel like what I do is I give people space to have responsibility so they can have power and freedom to choose.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
I like it. So one more quote from the famous Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. He wrote, unresolved traumas are future neuroses. The mind is so incredible. It brings things up when you're ready to heal from it. You can tamp it down or you can face it.
Yep.
If you tamp it down, it's going to come back. You can't escape that. It's a coping mechanism that worked at a period of your life. I certainly had some in my life that I've healed from. Yeah. But if you try and just tamp it down or numb it out, it'll come back.
Oh, yeah.
One day it won't go back. It won't go away. And you got to face it at that point. What kind of follow-up do you do with clients once you've worked with them and they maybe exit one of your programs? How do you stay in touch with them and how do you keep in touch?
They still have access to me and I still check in on them. Just, how are they doing? What is coming up? Do they need any support dealing with how things are going? Because I do private coaching and I've also developed an exclusive group situation where we do intensive seminars and then there's follow-up classes throughout time. But I have expanded my program 4 to 6 months so that we do what I call intensive breakthrough work, right? The traumatic and dealing with the unresolved emotions and all of those kinds of things, which is all the past work. And as a recent mentor and friend told me, breakthrough work and timeline therapy and hypnosis and all that, we're dealing with the past. We're uncovering it. We're uprooting it. Coaching is moving into the future. And so we spend time uncovering, letting go, and releasing, and then we actually coach through what we were talking about earlier, actually establishing and sustaining those new neural pathways and who you now say yourself to be. Because sometimes when you step out in the world even looks more alien than it did before in a whole new way. Yes. Right? You can hear and see people in a whole new way, and it's like, ah! Right? And so I want to be there to support, like, okay, what are you dealing with? How can, and for me, it's really learning to ask good questions.
The discovery part, I bet you're keeping clinics in business.
Maybe.
Now you have a retreat coming up in January in Tulum.
We do, yeah.
Yeah, tell us about that.
So Irina Alexander, who's also an NLP trainer here in Austin.
And a previous podcast guest about a year ago.
She was, yes. She said, how I met you. So she and I are fellow NLP trainers. We did our training together, and we're just really close. And we hosted a master's NLP training together this last July. And we were like, what if we did a retreat? So we were putting on a retreat January 12th through the 15th in Tulum, Mexico. And it's relax, re-inspire, rejuvenate. We're going to incorporate daily hypnosis around self-healing, whether that be physical, emotional, whatever it needs to be. Psych K, which is something that Edina has recently been certified in, which has to do with a new way to deal with limiting beliefs. And then we're on the beach, and we've got a caterer to do all of the chef-prepared meals and massage, and even possibly a photo shoot and business planning to set you up for an amazing 2023 from a just rebalanced and re-energized space with a clear vision of what's to come. And it's exclusive. We're only taking up to 10 people to go with us, but we're really excited because it's the first one we've done, and we're actually meeting today to go talk about it. So
that's great. Where can people find out more information and perhaps register to go?
On Motive Action on Edina's website.
Okay.
Motiveaction.com.
We'll put a link up on the screen as well. That way people can find it, and they can find you from your website as well as email jen@thejenhardy.com.
Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah.
Let me ask you two last questions. One, what brings you the most joy in what you do?
Oh, the aha moment. How you said earlier that you can see people's
You see a shift.
You literally, when you see the light bulb go off and the because I can see it from stage. I can see it when I'm doing master classes or workshops, and I can see it when I'm sitting in front of someone. It just clicks, and you're like, yay, they got it.
You can't hide the eyes.
No.
You can't hide the eyes.
I mean, it's the whole face. I mean, their entire physiology lights up.
Yeah. You get the energy. One last question. How do you want to be remembered?
When you asked me that, what came up was as a healer, which is interesting. But someone who's helping humanity heal and realizing our shared humanity, because we are in a world that right now is kind of terrifying and sad, because there's just so much hate and separation. And it's sad that people can't see how connected we truly are and how one we truly are. And while I feel like I'm out to support mostly women, but people to discover their authentic voice and use it, it's from a place of healing.
Yeah. The world needs you. They need your work because people are dicks. They just are. They just are. And you see it because, I think when I see posts on Facebook or wherever, just ugly things people will say, it's like, they must be the most hurting person on the planet. But I always think I'd hate to be inside their head and heart. But there's healing for them too, if they want it.
If they want it.
Jen Hardy, thanks very much for coming on. I appreciate it. It's an honor to know you. I'm glad you're here. And I look forward to seeing all the reach and impact that you make in the future. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Don't call me sir. I'm not that old.
I'm Texan. I call everybody sir. I'm going to call him sir. I'm going to call him sir.
That's our show for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Again, I do this for you, and I hope that you are getting as much out of it as I am. If you are struggling with something, and we all are, but if you want to make some changes, this is our last show of 2022. Going into 2023, reach out and have a complimentary conversation with Jen about where you are and how her and her services and just her compassion for people and her desire to connect us, how that might help you. You'll start putting together your 2023 resolutions, I think they call them. How many people put them down, but they don't really stick to them? And a month later, they're gone. It might be time, if you're ready, to commit to something new, to commit to being the new you, the you that's still in there. Life is hard. Life is harsh. We all grew up with these childhood dreams. We were limitless. Then life happened. But it doesn't have to be, you don't have to accept life on life's terms. Accept it on your terms. So make the call. Be brave. It's not going to hurt you. In fact, you just might learn a few things about yourself that benefit you, that also benefit the world. The better you are, the better the surroundings that you're going to be. I will be back tomorrow with another 30 to 40 second message on the audio podcast, a message of encouragement, strength, and hope. I hope to see you there. And until next time, be well.